All right, we're live again. We're back here, week number 6, our fifth show, I think. My fifth show because you were MIA last week, D. Grant. We had Callie Jameson on. Great little podcast.
I hadn't seen him in a long time.
It was really good to see him and hang out.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are again, coming to you live from the old Majestic Coffee Shop and Neon Parrot Live Studios. Got our friend Benjamin Fair in the audience. He'll be coming on next with the breakdown with Ben. So how's it going? What's been going on the last 2 weeks?
It's been fantastic, man. Like I was saying before, I am pretty positive that I've never been this happy, this much at peace, this much in just wonderful, healthy, beautiful relationships across the board. Business doing better than ever. Just rock and roll. When people say, "Hey man, how you doing?" I just go, "Rock and roll." And that's legit. And it's never been this good, man. But like, if I rewound the tape to this time last year,
mm-hmm.
the like polar opposite of that story. So I'm just super grateful, man.
It's good. It's good.
How about you?
Good. Rolling and trucking. What's the end of October? Which is wild. This year's been, I remember the beginning of the year, January, feeling like it was the longest month in the history of months.
That is facts.
And then it just kind of is like steamrolled a little bit the rest of the year. It's been wild.
Some people, my sister in particular, like, and my sister and I haven't really talked that much. She lives in Houston, but this year in particular, we haven't really had a lot of communication. But last time we talked, she's like, "Man, this year has just flown by." And when she said that, I was like, "Has it?" And I think for different people, it's been super fast, and for different people, it's been super difficult. For me, 23 was the hardest year of my life, like times a million. Like, and that's saying something because 2017 had been that for a while, but this year doesn't feel like it's been super fast, and it has actually been really challenging in certain ways, but just transformative too. So it's different for things are different for different people.
Right. So this kind of makes me want to segue a little bit, chase that monkey. So I know you spend a lot of time working on yourself, taking care of yourself, trying to grow yourself, make positive changes, things like this. So what's sort of your daily routine or morning routine to sort of get centered and grounded?
So I want to say that, I mean, I've been fully invested in personal growth, personal development for probably since 2012, but not as intensely as in 2017. I went through divorce, and that really like leapfrogged or skyrocketed or whatever you want to call it into like just it's this or I kill myself. That was literally my MO. And so choosing life over the opposite.
We should maybe stay there for a minute because, I mean, I don't know what month of the year is Men's Mental Health Month or Mental Health Month at all, but, it is. I think all of us spend seasons of our lives wrestling and struggling with ourselves, reality, where we live, in the middle of this historical moment of time. And, I've struggled with depression myself off and on in my life. My father has struggled with it, even with attempted suicide. I have not attempted, but my father has a couple times in my lifetime, and he's still with us, and we talk regularly, love him. But, it's heavy. I think a lot of times we just try to put a good face on and say, "Oh no, everything's good," or we try to cover up our fears with work or money or relationships or whatever, drugs, alcohol. But our mental health is like, I don't want to say it's super fragile, but it needs to be tended to
And
regularly.
I want to add emotional well-being to that.
Yeah.
Because there's a mental health side of thinking clearly, but if your heart is not in alignment with that, you're going to be in an internal civil war. And I was in that place for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, and also not having the awareness of knowing what's going on. Like, I didn't know how self-destructive I had been. And I didn't know that I'd abandoned myself. I didn't know that I'd rejected myself. I didn't know that I was holding myself under this intense, crazy, perfectionistic scrutiny, and that was actually causing people to push me away. I didn't realize that the behaviors of others was actually a reflection of the way that I was treating myself. And it wasn't until I came into that awareness that I could start taking a different approach to, yes, mental health, but emotional intelligence and emotional well-being.
Interesting. It makes me think. I mean, you've mentioned this before. A lot of people that are working on personal development on social media and the internet talk about this, and you've mentioned it a number of times. This idea that our reality is a reflection of ourselves, and the people that are in our lives are a reflection of ourselves. And I was thinking about that last night. It was getting a little bit late. My son and I were outside chatting, having a beer, and I was just listening to him talk about whatever he needed to discuss at the moment, work through his process. And, in some ways it's really nice to, like, I don't know if detach is the right word, but to recognize that, like, my job right now is just to listen and to be here, and I don't have to take anything my son or anybody says personally. I don't need to feel attacked. I don't need to be triggered, because this is what they need to say. This is what they're going through. And the only thing it has to do with me is that they've chosen to share. And so it kind of makes it easier to just sit back and listen. Yeah.
There's a story I heard Wayne Dyer say, and I use this all the time. I've found that incorporating this, and by the way, I'm working on year 7 or 8 practicing this rule. So if you're like me and you take yourself seriously, or you take things really personally, give yourself some time, a lot of grace. But the story basically is that there are these two heads of state diplomats that are talking in this room, and suddenly the door gets thrown open, and this guy comes in, and he's just slamming his hands on the table, and he's demanding all this stuff. And the resident diplomat tries to calm the guy down and says, hey, Mark, appreciate your passion, but please remember rule number 6. Instantly, the man's whole demeanor changes. And he just pauses, and he starts apologizing. He cleans up whatever mess he made, and he walks out the door. And the two diplomats go back to having discussion. A handful of minutes later, door flies open again. A lady rolls in. She's screaming her head off. She's pissed off as crap. The resident prime minister or diplomat, whatever, says the same thing. Margaret, please remember rule number 6. Instantly, she stops in her tracks, apologizes, bows, leaves. Well, a few minutes later, whole scene that's happened twice now happens for a third time, and the visiting diplomat is like, I've never seen anything like this before. I want to know, what is rule number 6, and why do these people know it? And he says, this is just a pinnacle, staple rule across our whole region. But rule number 6 is simply, don't take yourself so freaking seriously. And the man sits there and goes, wow, that's really profound. But now I'm curious, what are the other rules? And the resident prime minister, diplomat, whatever, says, oh, that's the best part. There aren't any. And so once I heard that story, that really set me on this course of being very aware. And I became incredibly aware of how seriously I took myself all the time. And like, in my relationships, I have a tendency of, this is something that my girlfriend's been reminding me about, taking too much responsibility for things and being overly responsible for other people's stuff. Yes, there's the aspect and dynamic of people are a reflection of what is going on inside of us. Yes, consciousness is reflected in our outer world. What's going on in the inner world determines so much of that. Yes, that's true, but that doesn't take away the responsibility that people have for their own behaviors. And so if you're in a toxic or dysfunctional relationship, or you've got somebody that's kind of, all over the place, or they're, manipulative or abusive or whatever the case may be, that is a reflection of something hidden inside of you, sure. But they still have a responsibility for that, for their behavior, and you don't have to sit there and put up with that stuff. So you can not take it so personally, whatever's going on, and also take proactive steps for your own mental and emotional well-being.
It's interesting that you talk about how seriously we take ourselves or not, and there is a spectrum there. I mean, I know where I fall on the spectrum. I tend to overanalyze, overthink, and take myself way too seriously half the time. However, the rule of acceptance has helped me with that immensely. And I don't know. I think maybe the other side to that coin is like passion. Sam and I were talking about this the other night. It's like when I watch, and I've been accused of this, especially in my youth, being too passionate, which is in some ways like taking myself so seriously that now I emotionally am like inflicting that on others. Like, you should also, you need to agree with my passion. You need to get in line with my passion, but my passion could just be like a metaphorical sharp dagger. I could just be like a baby with a razor blade.
I have a different take on.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I don't think that's a matter of passion.
Okay. I'm curious.
And I really don't think so. To me, what that sounds like, something that maybe you've wrestled with too, the fear of being too much. That's what it sounds like to me.
So would you say that's more of like a
I think so this is what I continue to learn and grow in. It's interesting for those of us that feel like we're too much. Everybody that I know that has that struggle or whatever are super passionate people, also super creative people. And the fear of being too much is actually linked to an unworthiness issue.
Like imposter syndrome style, or not really so much?
More, it's the flip side of feeling like you're too much is that you believe that you're not good enough. And so what's happened subconsciously in trying to alleviate or fix the not good enoughness is that we go way overboard in how we present ourselves and how we show up in the world, so that we feel like we're seen and we're not invisible. But then because we know that we're subconsciously going above and beyond, and because we know we're so super passionate, then now if people see who I really am, they're going to think that I'm too much and I'm going to get pushed away. So becomes the damned if you do and damned if you don't sort of thing.
Well, I mean, as a as a divorcee and as a father of 3 amazing people, I can completely relate to that. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So all these things really do tie back into our identity and our mental and emotional health.
What you said earlier that I want to just pat you on the back for and give you mad props. What you were talking about in like talking with TJ and just being present, and you don't have to have answers, and you don't have to like the best thing you can do in that moment is to just sit there and listen. What I'm learning about and not taking things personally, this is this space holder we can give the most love in, because now in this safe space, there's nothing to prove. You're not the answer to anybody's problems. You're not the person that's having to come up with solutions or be the fixer. And as men, it's
We
kind of
want
our
to. Yeah,
default
we want
mode
to.
to try to be the fixer. Even if somebody's not really even talking about problems, it's almost like we kind of want to create something just so we can feel like we have a purpose. But really, just being a space holder in a safe space is like one of the best gifts you can ever give to anybody.
Yeah. I think I've learned or been forced to learn some of that through my business of tattooing. I mean, I have a private studio, so it's 9 times out of 10, it's just me and the client. And over the years, I've learned that I don't have to entertain them. My job's totally different. I'm helping them through this, transition with art on their body, whatever. And that's the space I need to hold. And so I've learned that there are a lot of people that, it's like a hairdresser or something else. A lot of people want to come in and they want to kind of use you as a therapist and unload and share things and get stuff off their chest. And I think that's great. And other times people want to come in and take a nap or whatever. But for me, I guess what I've noticed about myself is that I just need to create a safe atmosphere. And that's easy. Just be quiet, show up, suit up, and be quiet and listen and get out of my own shit, get out of my own head, get out of my own whatever's bothering me that day. If there's something bothering me, just accept it, move on, and create space for that other person.
You bring up a really interesting point, and I want to brag about you and your work.
Brag.
Okay, so I've got 2 Travis Eason pieces on me. You are my guy.
Thanks,
like,
man.
There's nobody but you.
You can cheat on me. It's okay. It's all right.
I'm not making tattoo adultery a part of my lifestyle. I will say if I'm out of town somewhere,
Sure,
and something,
go for it.
thank you for your blessing in that.
Mhm.
But my experience with you has been, because at least from the work that you've done with me, aside from the chest piece, like, it's not just a one-time thing.
Yeah.
There's a process. There's a visionary experience, and then there's the detail. And I mean, tattooing isn't for the faint of heart.
No, it's not, unfortunately.
So so you said something to me, and I think the first or second tattoo session we had together, and I put it in my Be Solid book because it was so profound. Travis told me, time is your best friend.
Time is your friend.
And I was not fully divorced at the time, or maybe that had gone through. I don't remember. But I was feeling like my life was getting away. And my dream of having a happy, healthy marriage was now out the window, and I felt like I was going to be single forever and alone and all these different things. And there was a part of me that wanted to just hurry up and get to the end. And while no, you're not a therapist, what you were in that moment was you were tattooing and putting my vision on my body in a visual sense that has, transformed. And as a storyteller, I'm wearing my story, which is beautiful, and I'm so appreciative of you giving me that opportunity. But in that space, you were but you were a close, dear friend in that moment. And that was a hard truth that I needed to experience. And so what I want to just point out is that, like, you've done transformative work in the lives of people that you have probably no idea about.
I have an inkling, and that's about it.
You have this much of an inkling of the massive, like, mountain ranges of impact that you've left with people.
Well, thanks, man. Hopefully it's all been positive. I'm sure not all of it has, but hopefully most of it has. The time is your friend is a big thing. It's sort of like, I remember I had a mantra for a while around the same time of, fear isn't real. and I still struggle with fear isn't real because fear eats my ass multiple times a week, for various things, and I have to sit with it, accept it, meditate about it, pray about it, journal, whatever, talk about it, whatever I need to do to move past that. And then I don't know, the older I get, the more I see the same cycles of fear repeating. It's like, man, I thought that I had made some progress on this. I mean, a big finances, I think a lot of people have some fear around finances in some capacity. And it's silly to continue to, I mean, I judge myself about this, but I'm like, Travis, this is silly. You keep experiencing these similar cycles of fear around finance, and yet every single day there's enough. Every single month there's enough. So it's like, to me, that's the universe or God or my higher power continuing to show me the lesson because I haven't quite learned it yet, or maybe it's just an ongoing thing that's just, this is what it's like to row the boat.
I think so much of this is like, in our country, it's interesting. For being one of the most prosperous nations in the world,
We're a third world country.
Our whole country struggles desperately with lack, scarcity, poverty consciousness.
Yep.
And it's passed into us through media, through movies, through music.
Maybe it's in the yogurt. I don't know.
Religion, through education. Like, it's everywhere. Different power players dumbing us down or attempting to. But having the awareness of, wait, there's this fear that's irrational, and then there's my experience. And typically our fears are based on our experience, but you having the awareness now that, like, wait, I have this fear, but it doesn't align with what my actual experience has been.
It's not real.
The universe keeps providing for me. My source is always an abundant supply for me. So why am I freaking out about this?
Well, and I mean, I could translate that, a similar fear, to, like, relationships. I tend to suffer from the I'm not good enough part, like I have that, which is probably a fear also when you really break it down. But noticing in myself that, like, I tend to be an anxious attacher, and then, like, am I good enough? And I need to wait to hear back from this person to feel okay in my own skin. And so it's probably why I tend to stay single, because I can get really comfortable in my own skin and being alone and having a lot of peace with that. But then taking a risk to open up and to be vulnerable with someone else, or, with attraction, you throw some attraction in there too. And then all of a sudden it's the same sort of headspace of, like, who am I? What am I doing?
But notice what you just said about being at peace with being alone. That makes you in the best space to have a relationship that's healthy.
Well, it's kind of scary because I feel like, do I have to trade in my peace for more anxiety?
Only if you create that story.
Yeah, right.
And
it's
again,
wild.
Awareness. So what you said to me about time being my best friend, I'm going to give you a version of that.
Heard.
Awareness is your best friend.
Heard. Sometimes being self-aware or awake, or it's almost like taking yourself too seriously in a way. However, there's a range in there too. It's an interesting conversation we're having today. So let me jump backwards. So tell me more about what you do for your morning routine to kind of get grounded and set.
It's shifted a good bit. Here's something I've discovered about myself. So I spent a long time using affirmations to change my belief system. And then what I found myself doing was basically relying on the affirmation practice and thinking that was actually making the change. And it's not. the whole purpose of that is to change the subconscious belief inside. But if you give so in the metaphysical manifestation, whatever communities, there's all kinds of techniques to change your life, manifest relationships, money, job, cars, house, whatever you want. And there's all kinds of different teachers that teach all kinds of different things, and there's all kinds of clickbait bullshit. If you put the emphasis on the technique, the thing you're doing, and you think that's the thing that's going to make the change, you're going to be struggling for a long time. Because you actually have the power, not the technique.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've learned is to detach from trying to change things in my life that I don't like, loving myself regardless of what it is that's happening, as difficult as that may be. There's a period of time not that long ago where I was severely broke. Severely broke. Like, maxed out credit cards, just, I'm not going to go into all the details. But it was bad.
Tough spot.
Really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing the work. I was telling myself a different story. I was writing a different story every day. I was journaling. I was doing meditations. I was hypnotizing myself. Yeah. And there was a period of time where doing all that inner work, I wasn't seeing any changes. And it got me feeling like, am I wasting my time? Am I making this up? Why does it work for these people, but it doesn't work for me? And then something changed. Kind of all at once. So what I want to share about this whole thing about the routine, yes, find something that works for you. But when you find something that you're doing, don't give up on the process. Some people say, oh, if it doesn't work in a week or 2 weeks or, a month and a half, don't give up, keep going. And some people are like, oh, well, I've been doing this for 3 or 4 months and I haven't seen anything. Dude, I think both of us can attest as being small business owners. Sometimes you're going to do stuff in your business that you're planting bamboo.
Yeah.
You plant the seed, you water the seed, you do all the things that other people are doing, and their stuff's growing like wildfire or wild flowers. And yours is, where the hell is it? And then suddenly out of nowhere, stuff starts to sprout, and then there's eureka happens, and you find yourself in this Eden of paradise. And you're like, people are like, where did this come from? How did this happen all of a sudden? You're like, you have no idea the faith it took to create this thing.
Yeah.
So my transformation has come from, and I'm going to answer your question in terms of what I do, actual practical things, but it's doing the things without trying to make something happen.
Yeah.
So what I do for myself,
possibilities, not outcomes.
what I do for myself is because I love myself, not because I'm trying to change something. And letting go and detaching from outcome is probably the biggest step in the whole puzzle.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I write down what my intentions are for my next day the night before. What that does, I'm learning, is it tells my subconscious mind, this is what I want to do tomorrow. Help me make that happen. So when I tell myself I want to get up and work out, it doesn't always happen. I'm not always perfect. But writing it down ahead of time, my body naturally wakes up when it's supposed to wake up. And even if I try to go back to sleep, I can't because I'm awake. It motivates me to get out of bed and work out. And then I'll add details like I want to work out hard. And I find myself working out harder. When I write things I want to experience in business, I find myself naturally doing those things without trying to forcing myself into that place. I set one main goal, one main focus for the day. So instead of trying to multitask and do 5 or 6 or 10 different things, I do my personal storytelling, business development stuff before 1 o'clock because I'm in my most creative zone then. And then at 2 o'clock, that's when I start working on my clients' work because I can shift into, I'm already in a creative mode, but I can shift into that place. And I go for a walk. I go for a walk usually in the morning, and with the weather being as nice as it is, I usually go for a walk in the evening. And I wind down and talking to my love before I go to bed, but I go to bed by 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do a meditation or two, prayer time, whatever you want to call it, sometime in the middle of the day. So that's a pretty consistent spread of what my things are
Mm-hmm.
that keep me in a high vibe place. What I've learned is that meditation is necessary for calmness in a balanced nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that keeps us in states of all kinds of disarray, dysfunction, toxicity, whether that's relationships or business or whatever, panic, anxiety, all those things, is a dysregulated nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Regulate your nervous system, which is basically deep breathing and meditation. Keeps everything's functioning properly.
Take a nap, eat a sandwich,
Body
drink
feels
some water.
safe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I drink lots of tea.
Mm-hmm.
Getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Different people, different strokes for different folks. Some people can function fantastically on 6 hours, and if they go over that, like, they're just wasted all day.
Mm-hmm.
Some people need 10 hours, and they can't handle it if it's not. And it's not like A or B. It's just whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you find your sweet spot and run with it. And also, I don't know which camera I'm supposed to be looking at, but, like, when you find your sweet spot, stick with your sweet spot.
Mm.
If I suggest something, or you hear me suggest something, and it's not your sweet spot, screw what I have to say.
Yeah. If
Doesn't
it works,
matter.
it works. If it doesn't work,
Yeah.
leave it alone. Yeah, for sure. I think I want to go back to process a little bit and progress. I'm a huge believer in process, and that if it's worth doing, it's going to take time. There's very few
Amen.
There's very few things that I can do well quickly. Scramble eggs. That's probably about it. I can scramble you some tasty eggs pretty quick. But outside of that, like,
And even that,
it's still a process. There's still process to it.
you
Yeah.
scramble eggs better now than you did 20 years ago.
That's right. That's right. Got to really combine the yolks and and the whites. Anyway, whether it's with art or theater or tattoo or this podcast or friendships or my relationships with my children and grandchild, it is nothing's going to happen today that's going to make or break anything. Pretty much. That's kind of what I've come to with process. Nothing is going to make or break me today. But every time that I'm willing to put in energy and effort towards the process, whether it's showing up on these Thursday mornings and hanging out with you guys and creating some content that we put out on the internet that, hopefully some people see at some point, or maybe it doesn't matter. It is the process of those little steps, over and over. And it's not discipline necessarily. I mean, you could make the case that you got to be disciplined to do it, but I think just showing up and committing to continuing the process, whatever that is, that's where you start to get the outcomes, even if you didn't plan the outcomes.
Yeah, like, so much. I was talking about this with one of my business clients yesterday. He's a coach for C-suite executives, small to medium-sized companies. He works with some pretty influential leaders. But we were talking about, like, what is process and, like, what is growth, and both of us sharing, but, like, his insights on, if you're so attached to, I'm going to do these steps because it has to create this end result, you're chaining yourself to this thing.
To the result, to the outcome.
And then you're going to hate yourself regardless of what happens. Your end result could be something that potentially could be way bigger than this. So let go of that. Focus on the journey. Focus on the process. What steps are you learning? And one of the other things that he shared was, like, the idea, success and failure actually have the same definition. We beat ourselves up over failure, but as soon as you succeed, about 3.5 minutes later, you're already looking at the next pinnacle you want to get to. Like, it's not really as significant as you make it out to be.
Yep.
And all that failure is something that didn't go exactly the way that you planned. But both of them are learning experiences, and they're part of the journey and part of the process, that's got to be the focus.
I agree with this. I want to add a little thought. I want to tag a little thought to this. So I know that for myself, in process towards projects, we can use tattoo as an example, could use theater as an example, but for me personally, there's a lot of times, especially if it's a project that I'm really, passionate about or invested in, or maybe it's the person that I'm working with, right? But when we come to the end of, let's say, like a sleeve, let's say we do a sleeve on somebody, it takes a year, right? Get to the end of that year, and you can get a tattoo done faster than that, but process is important. Get to the end of that time, and I get a little sad. I'm not depressed, but like, oh man, this one's over. I used to feel like that with theater. You do like 12 shows a year, and you got like 2 weeks of downtime in between, and I would just kind of, sit on my hands. I didn't really know what to do with myself sometimes after a show, because it's like, man, you poured all this energy, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into something, and now it's over. And I still experience that, like, with a lot of things. But I think that, I don't know, so I don't really know how to categorize that or what that's all about, but it's almost like sadness because you've reached a really great outcome that you were part of, even if you weren't. I mean, it's weird to talk about possibilities and outcomes, because in some cases outcomes are really important, but how you get there doesn't matter.
If the whole focus is on the outcome, then you don't enjoy yourself as much.
Yeah.
Not to say that you don't enjoy yourself at all. And maybe instead of me projecting you don't enjoy yourself, I don't enjoy myself as much. And it seems like the time lapse between the beginning and the arrival destination point either goes way too fast or way too slow. If it's going too slow because I'm so focused on the outcome and wanting to get there, then I'm certainly not being appreciative or enjoying myself. And the opposite of that can also be true. It can go by super fast, and then you get to the end of it, and you're like, wait, but I really wish that I would have taken my time. I really wish that I would have, like, it just soaked up those moments and really enjoyed it. But I can't go back and get that now.
I can think of two examples about this. One, the short-term example is like a road trip. There's like the kind of thought process. I've had both. Thought process of, okay, I got to drive 1,000 miles. I need to get there as quick as I can. Right? Or I need to drive 1,000 miles. I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna enjoy the drive. Stop when I need to stop, whatever. And then and to correlate that against raising kids, I remember when my babies were babies, and everybody, small group or just colleagues, friends, it goes so fast. You got to enjoy every moment, be present for every moment. And I swear to you, D, I was so present as much as I possibly could be for all those kids for the last 25 years. And it doesn't matter because it just goes by so fast. It doesn't matter how many flowers you stop to smell along the way. It's still... So time is your friend, right? It has to be, because otherwise it just feels like an injustice.
That's profound, dude.
Little paradox in there somewhere.
Travis Eason, words of wisdom.
So, okay, we got deep quick. Talked about some things. What are you looking forward to? You have a birthday coming up next month. What are you looking forward to between now and the end of the year? Are there any projects you're working on, goals that you're looking to achieve, possibilities?
Yeah, man. So I was excited about 42 because Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Answer to the universe.
Answer to the universe. So, and that's really been my experience, man. I didn't know how anything was going to change, and I let go of that. So another aspect of, like, what do I do? Surrender. But heading into the upcoming year, man. Something I'm going to talk to Sam about, and I'll just go ahead and say it here. Like, I would like the opportunity to be able to read my stories,
Sure.
like either on this show or do another show. But I'm going to be releasing my first story anthology in early part of 2025 called The Resplendent Window Volume 1.
The Resplendent Window Volume 1.
And beginning to end, much like what I did with the appetizer, it's a curated series of stories that, like, the individual stories are telling a comprehensive story when you zoom out. It's a story into the heart and soul and understanding ourselves on a deeper spiritual level. So to look through the lens of a different world, our own world, in a different way. So I've got that coming out, and I'm excited about that. I want to go on some trips next year.
Anywhere in particular?
I want to go to the beach.
Do you have a preference on which beach you go to?
Not really.
I like to think I'm a little bit of a beach snob because we were spoiled growing up. We went to some
Please snob away with
pretty great beaches. But as a Texas resident for the last 25 years, I have a favorite Texas beach.
What is it?
Port Aransas.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, I really love it. I've never been to South Padre, been to Galveston a few times.
No.
Port A, man. Port A's it gets busy in the summertime for sure. We were there Labor Day weekend for my mom's 70th birthday. Busy, but super enjoyable.
I've been to Port Aransas once, about 11, 12 years ago. Been to Corpus, been to Galveston. Yeah, dude, I'd definitely go back to Port Aransas. I wanted, part of me wants to go to Florida. Part of me wants to, like, my favorite beach probably that I've ever been to, and it's been 20-something, maybe 30 years. Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Gulf Shore, I've heard good things about that.
Before that MTV show that was there 20 years ago or whatever, it was a much smaller town. Now there's all kinds of stuff that's there, but like white sands, clear water, like just gorgeous. So I want to go to the beach. I want to take a train trip.
Very cool.
So probably gonna do that.
You have a destination on that, a starting and stopping spot?
Couple of ideas, but I'm keeping that under
There's
the
like
hat.
a Miami to Anchorage, Alaska train track. Wouldn't that be cool?
No.
No, too long?
Cool in a literal sense.
Yeah.
I don't do cold weather.
Oh, man. Alaska's beautiful in the summertime.
That's what I hear.
And the wintertime, but...
So I want to do some travel. Yeah, hang out with some people and play some music.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
Those are good things. For 43.
Yeah.
It's good.
So 4 + 3 = 7. It's my favorite number. So I'm expecting and anticipating and just manifesting, whatever you want to call it, another kick-ass awesome year.
It'll be great. It'll be a good year. What else, my guy?
Well, how about I just want to express my gratitude to you for asking me to come be a part of this.
Oh, yeah,
and to
dude.
Sam for putting this on every week, and for Ben and his inspiration and what he does with the breakdown, and also getting to be a guest on his show a couple weeks ago. That was absolutely solid. And all you guys for watching. And there's a lady that I heard give a really powerful talk in 2008 at a radio conference I went to. Her name is Valerie Geller. She has a book called Creating Powerful Radio. And the book is ancient now, but it's principles in that book, just like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It might be almost 100 years old, but the core principle is still true. What Valerie said in the book, one of the core principles I took away from it anyways, is anything you create for one person. Especially in today's highly provocative and trying to do things to get people's attention and influencer culture and blah, 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 of getting, it's got to go viral and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have to see it or it's not significant. That's bullshit.
I agree.
Make something for one person. Pour your heart into one person having a great experience. And then if other people have a cool experience, sweet. But to whoever the one person is that's really watching this and getting the most out of this experience, thank you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think this has been I don't want to use the word fun or unique, but those are the two that pop in my mind. This has been a fun and unique opportunity, but it really has been. I mean, this was Sam's idea, sort of the early part of September. We were chatting, and he was able to get these cameras at auction, and already has this awesome space, and he's using it for the open mic night, and it seemed like a good, I mean, it's something we've talked about for years. How cool would it be not to have a podcast, but to have the ability, the technical prowess and ability to do something like this? I know in the future, we would love to do more live music in the space, and then, maybe it's a band that's in the area waiting to see if they get on at ACL or something, and we can get them in and record their show and then do a sit down with them and ask questions. And I mean, it's nothing new. This is being done all the time, but not in Abilene, and maybe it's part of growing culture, or maybe it's part of growing community, but just having the ability to sit down and have these chats, and like having Kelly on last week and reminiscing about Abbey House and just talking about, some of the things that have happened in town and personalities and people that have helped make it happen. Again, for me, this is I look forward to these Thursday mornings.
Me too.
Unfortunately, I don't do a lot of prep for it outside of trying to get a good night's sleep and get my ice mocha in me in the morning. But I know I can always have an interesting conversation with you. Hopefully, we can continue to get some more interesting characters in here and hear their stories and their histories and what their contributions are to the community. And, my hope would be that there's, one or two people out there that think this is worthy of an hour of their time to sit and listen to us go back and forth. And same with the breakdown with Ben. I mean, I'm not the biggest sports fan, but I can always listen to Ben tell me about sports because he makes it's interesting.
It's incredible. Talking about detachment.
Yeah.
And passion.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling this to a friend of mine the other day, and I'm glad that Ben's sitting right there so I can share it in his presence. But I used to be Alabama Crimson Tide fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Chicago Bears fan when Danielle Manning played for them, and the Houston Texans when he played for them. And then after that, it's kind of when I started to pull back, because I realized I'm giving these teams so much of my emotional energy and passion, and they don't give a shit about me. They don't know that I exist. Why am I giving so much love and devotion and energy to? And it's a game for crying out loud.
A little bit like, it sounds a little bit like our current political situation.
It's exactly
same kind of thing.
But when I detached, and I went cold turkey. Like I think I've watched a handful of football games in the last 4 years, but the only sport that I pay any attention to is boxing, and that's because of one fighter in particular is electrifying to me and is a massive inspiration for me, but also because I'm a huge fan of the sport. But when Ben started this show, I didn't know that ACU's quarterback is named Maverick MacGyver.
That's so cool.
I mean, that's like a superhero name.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that apparently the kid's really good. There's so much about sports that is happening that I don't know, and I still don't watch. But I pay attention to what Ben says because it's interesting, and his breakdown is captivating, and it makes me want to watch, I'll admit. And maybe Ben will convert me into becoming a fan of the sport of football again, just from like observational sort of standpoint, but it doesn't matter. I'm a fan of Ben as a human being and as a dude, and especially this like, forgive me for the way I'm going to say this, but like a poor man's Joe Rogan, like because he has this like perspective and energy and charisma and breakdown, for lack of a better term. I mean, I didn't know it's the title of his show, but like his breakdown of things is incredibly entertaining. And I think his breakdown is more entertaining than the actual games themselves.
Probably. I agree with that. So just to kind of wrap things down a little bit, if you're watching this podcast and you're enjoying this, I want to let you know that these Thursday mornings, we get started around 10 or so in the morning, and you're always welcome to come down to the Majestic Coffee. This is live. Yeah, we're not editing this. We're just going off the cuff.
And we're inviting you to come and sit on the couches,
we are.
Enjoy
And
some coffee.
If you are watching this and you're thinking to yourself, man, I have a topic that's really interesting that I'd like to do a podcast on, come down and talk to us. Like you just mentioned, you'd like to start reading your short stories that you've been writing, and I think there's probably an opportunity to do that. We are also we're just trying to create an atmosphere here that is open to artists of all shapes and sizes, and that you're welcome here. If we can find a way to fit you in, we're gonna go out of our way to do that. Yeah. I'm not sure what else to say today.
Well, I think this has been another exciting edition of and I appreciate it,
Yeah,
Trav.
man. Good. So next week?
See.
Next week, cool. There are a couple of people I've been talking to come on for a guest spot, and we'll look forward to seeing if we can get some of those neat people on here and keep reaching out. If you are someone that would think, oh, I would love to sit and talk with Travis and D. Grant about, then come on down, get in touch with us, and we'd love to have you on.
Rock on.
All right, man. Up next, Breakdown with Ben. Thank you again for another great show coming to you live from Majestic Coffee Shop in historic downtown Abilene, Texas, Neon Parrot Live Studios. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Ben.